I am with some of our wonderful, wonderful instructors here at Apprentice University. We're very excited to have them here in our instructor panel. Those of you that are joining us today, we also had about 4 other instructors with us last week in a live session. So we have the recording for that. We might, if you're interested in hearing that one as well, let us know and we can get that to you. So what I'm going to do quickly is just go through and tell you the names of who's in here, and then I'm going to start by asking them a series of questions that we often get from interested parties for Apprentice University, and then we'll go ahead and open it up for other questions from you, our guests that are in here with us. So we have Nancy Clausen. Nancy's there. We have Andy Dix, and we have Cindy Brumbarger, and I'll just tell you very quickly, Nancy teaches accounting. Andy is our newest instructor at Apprentice University, and Cindy he's teaching podcasting, I'm sorry. And Cindy's been with us a while, and she teaches constitutional studies. She teaches critical thinking through current events and humanities. So that's all I'm going to say, and I'm going to let them tell you more about themselves. So if you all would consider, I'm going to give you a little series of questions that all sort of go together, all right? And the first is, how long have you been teaching? And it doesn't mean teaching here. Like, how long have you been at Apprentice University teaching? And then how long have you been teaching if you have been teaching elsewhere? You can talk a little bit about, briefly, why you teach, what you teach, and also that might go with what is your profession outside of Apprentice University. So we'll go ahead and we'll just start with Nancy, if you don't mind.
So I have probably been teaching in a formal setting for 5-6 years, not real sure. I've been teaching at Apprentice University for the past 3 fall sessions. As far as teaching goes, I've probably been informally teaching since I was a teenager. I love working with other people and teaching. So something that I've done a good part of my life. I am a tax accountant, or I am an accountant, but I focus on tax. I've been doing that for about 23 years. Prepare a lot of taxes. It's been a pretty busy time of year these past few weeks, especially with all the stuff coming down from the president and the government with all the changes that are happening right now. So it's been an interesting last few weeks, to say the least. I do teach accounting at AU, and really focus on helping our students to learn. Accounting is often called the language of business. So just like you would learn a foreign language, Spanish or whatever, accounting is a language all in its own, and it's a language that businesses use to communicate with one another. And so I work on teaching you what that language is, what the terminology is, what it all means, how does it work, and how do the decisions that you make as a possible a owner of a company or even an employee, how do your decisions affect the bottom line and affect the financial statements and how well your business is doing? And I help give an understanding for those types of things.
Wonderful. Thank you, Nancy. And what I forgot to mention is that unlike other organizations and universities where they have hired faculty and they are faculty, we do it differently when we talk about market-driven education here at Apprentice University. All of our faculty are actually professionals, and they willingly come on board and teach with us, but they are professionals, as Nancy just said, outside of Apprentice University. Cindy, I'm going to go ahead and head on over to you for those questions, if you don't mind.
Sure, happy to share. Well, let me just segue right from your point. My professional role is usually not in a spare bedroom. I'm usually in a office with a number of folks in administration in the healthcare industry. I play a support role for the CEO of HealthNet, which supervises it's a nonprofit model. They supervise federally qualified healthcare centers around central Indiana, and I work intimately with him and the entire senior leadership. So certainly not what you would expect of somebody who is teaching humanities and government and critical thinking at AU. But they actually do go together because all of those topics are predicated upon that whole idea of critical thinking and really asking those thought-provoking and essential questions. Going beyond just the basic content, getting that brain of yours to really stir. There's a standing joke among myself and my students that if they leave with their heads spinning, my mission has been completely accomplished. So I've been teaching at AU for, I think I'm right around the 4-year mark. Check my math, Angie, for certain. But I've been teaching for well over 10 years. And after you've been teaching 10 years, you just stop keeping track of the actual years on an annual basis. But I really look forward to an opportunity to share some of those ideas with critical thinking if you decide to join AU.
Thanks, Cindy. And Andy, our newest to the group here.
Yeah, so I'm the baby of the group. I've just been teaching this semester, and I actually took over for another instructor whose work commitments got a little bit intense for him. And so I teach, which I hate to even see the word teach, because I really just facilitate the podcasting class. We're all sort of at different levels of becoming a good podcast producer. And so I like to tell the participants in the workshop that, I'm just a little bit further down the road than you are. I did teach audio production while I was in grad school at Indiana University many years ago. I have a background in radio and television, and then cable television for about 17 years, worked for a Fortune 50 company and did a lot of corporate training then. And what I really enjoy about the AU experience is, we do a lot of what I would call action learning. And that is, we're simply challenging the students to complete different tasks and help them be equipped to do that. But more importantly, challenge them to go out into the world, whether it's in person or online or whatever, and get the knowledge that they need to complete the task. And we can guide them with that, but they're really learning at their own pace and learning in ways that is most conducive for them. And the projects that we're completing are just terrific. So real excited to be a part of it. And as I say, just been with AU for a couple of months now.
And Andy, I'm not going to let you get away without saying what the title of your own podcast is now.
Yeah, so I have a labor of love podcast called the Hopeful Hoosier Podcast. And my day job is a board certified executive coach. So I have my own coaching firm called AD Growth Advisors here in Indianapolis. And I do a lot of professional development, leadership, that kind of thing with professionals all over the world.
And since you sort of actually started down this path with my next two questions, Andy, I'm going to leave it at you for a moment, is what inspired you to start teaching with us here at Apprentice University? And what is your favorite aspect of teaching / facilitating? I'm glad that you said that, because typically we call our instructors, teachers, facilitators, because oftentimes they are more facilitating than they're actually teaching. And that's a different model as well. So Andy?
Well, and so just real quickly, the word facilitation is really based on the whole idea of to make something easier for somebody else. And that's what I think my role really is to make podcasting, in this case, a little bit easier for the person that is wanting to be that podcasting student. And so what was your question again, Angie? I got sidetracked there.
Oh, that's okay. It's what drew you to decide to go ahead and come on board to teach in the first place, and what's some of your favorite aspects thus far?
Sure, thank you. So I interviewed Ron Brumbarger, who is obviously the president of Apprentice University and the founder, and I interviewed him for the Hopeful Hoosier podcast. And when I was creating that podcast, I thought, wow, this is really exciting. And the more I thought about it and the more I talked to him, the more excited I got. I came out and was a guest at a career day seminar, met the other faculty members and students, and thought, wow, this is really something different and good and needed. And so when the opportunity presented itself, where the other instructor who I knew needed to be able to transition back to his full-time work, I was thrilled to do it. The reason is, the level of student in this apprentice university is very different from what you would expect from a traditional 4-year college student. And there's nothing wrong with 4-year college students, but my experience in working with several of the students directly is they're very career oriented, they're very achievement oriented, and I love the fact that they want desperately to master things. It's not just enough to know it. They want to be able to do it and be able to demonstrate that they can do it. And to come away from this kind of experience, A, debt-free, and B, with a portfolio of both completed projects that are real-world projects and solidified relationships with people in the business world, and you have a network, what more could somebody want in today's highly competitive job market?
Thanks so much, Andy. Nancy, you want to go ahead and jump in on those questions?
So my oldest son started Apprentice University when he was a senior in high school. And it was the first year that they offered the classes like they do right now. And my husband and I, several times over the course of that year, would go and visit and just sit in on the classes. And we were so impressed by not only the instruction that we were seeing in the classrooms, but by the change in our son and his desire to succeed and his motivation just grew exponentially after being involved with these classes at Apprentice University. And so because of that, I believe wholeheartedly in the mission of Apprentice University and how they go about doing the classes. And it's not just instruction, but it's hands-on, it's learning, but it's also expecting students to figure out some things for themselves. Sometimes you may not know how to do something, and instead of just waiting around for someone to tell you how to do it, these students will go and they'll figure it out for themselves. And that's great to see. You know, one of my favorite aspects is the students. Like Andy said, it's such a high caliber of students who want to be there, who want to succeed, who do their best to do the best that they can. And it's really encouraging as an instructor to have them come back later on. And I've had numerous students from all different levels of areas of interest. Students who are interested in drama, and students who are interested in business, and others who are interested in nonprofit, from all different aspects. And they come back in and they say, I was sitting in my apprenticeship. I had to go to a meeting the other day, and I've been going to these meetings for the past 2 months, and I was sitting in there and I suddenly understood what they were talking about. It all made sense because I've been in this class. And just watching that it's so exciting.
Excellent. Cindy.
These are great questions, and I just echo what both Andy and Nancy had to say. There's something about being in a role as a teacher, and you really aren't a teacher if you have a passion for educating and expanding the minds of others and encouraging them to go down that road of discovery. And that's what I love to do. I'm walking the road with every single one of my students. But AU is so unique in that it really is about this layered experience of growth. And what I truly appreciate about AU is that growth can look different for every single student, and you have the opportunity to capitalize on that on an individual basis. You know, traditional education is often so driven toward metrics. And I say that as an individual who just finished her master's in education. There were times when I saw those traditional methods and the taxonomies that I was asked to reference, and I would just shake my head and say, this is so broken. You need to see what we're doing at AU. And I know that what we're doing at AU works. As part of my master's degree, we prototyped and executed one of those teaching models that I use among my students. And the progress was there, the benefit was there, far beyond my expectations, far beyond the expectations of my instructor as well. But that is the passion for me behind my presence at AU, is just helping everybody open their eyes, apply those skills wherever they are, whenever they are, and however most benefits them. And the outcome is just a feather in the cap of someone like me. I'm glad to be there.
Cindy, stay on here and we'll go with you. And I think because you just started touching on this one as well, is what do you think are the elements of a good education, and what do you see as the major challenges of higher ed currently, and how do you feel that Apprentice University is addressing those challenges?
That is a really great question. When I started my pursuit of my master's degree, I was a little hesitant because I knew I would be running into some of those more traditional methodologies. And that's what all of higher ed is oriented around. It's these hard and fast objectives that require an element of measurement that constricts and compresses learning. AU is much more broad in those learning experiences, to the point that using the rubrics that we use and using broader defined objectives as far as mastery, it allows for a very creative, innovative, and personalized learning experience. And I think that's the key. Uh, Higher ed is embracing that idea in some places, but the whole idea of using a rubric and proficiency models like AU embraces and mastery still really lost on them. It really makes some of those educators quake. And that is one of the reasons I am at AU. That's what makes us very, very different. As far as a great learning experience, anytime a instructor or facilitator or teacher or whatever term you want to assign to the individual working with at the time, because in a classroom experience like AU, sometimes I am a teacher. It's, one-on-one, here's the information you need to know. Sometimes I'm an instructor truly guiding, and then other times I am just a facilitator, because once a student is able to grab on to a concept and fly with it, the job of that person leading a classroom at AU changes, and we just keep making certain you're going in the right direction. But I find that model produces much, much better results that can be applied in a real world situation. And that's where higher ed is missing it. There's still so much focus on the classroom that we miss that application outside those four walls in a way that makes sense and makes a difference.
Thanks for that. And I'll just say, Andy or Nancy, if you have anything else you'd like to add on that, then come in and jump in on that if you would.
Yeah, well, the thing that I look at is, what is the college course that trains you to prosper during a quarantine and coronavirus issue, right? It doesn't exist. Now, it may exist later, but what do you do right now? And I think that's what sets apart an AU student from another student. Because when you think about it, AU is really structured around doing the following: knowledge acquisition, which is learning, right? But then internalization of that knowledge so that it becomes a part of who you are. It's not just what you know, but it's a part of who you are, and it's put into a right context. And because it's in a right context, you've internalized it, you can now utilize it in the direct application in the career path that you want to choose. And so it's not just knowledge that you're never going to use. This is knowledge you've specifically picked out as helpful, that builds towards your career path. But more importantly than anything else, because of this action learning type model where you're really driving your own desired learning outcomes in a lot of ways, what it allows you to do is not only internalize it, but apply it, and then most importantly, adapt it. And that's the world we're in right now. We call it VUCA, very, uncertain and that kind of thing. And that world isn't going to change. And so now you've got to be able to adapt whatever you know, whatever you can do, to an uncertain and unforeseen future. And I think an AU student is uniquely qualified to be able to do that and strive and thrive no matter what the world throws at us here in the future.
Thanks so much for that perspective, Andy. I couldn't have said it better myself, so thank you. And I will tell you, I don't even know if our three instructors on here know this, but as all of the other college campuses have completely emptied and students are sitting at home, all of our apprentices are business as usual. Nothing has changed for Apprentice University other than we did have to take our seminar style classes online, and they have been excellent because all of our, as you see, all of our instructors are professionals. When I said, can you go online and teach through Zoom? It was immediate, no question. They're all familiar with online applications. So we had no problem transitioning. All of our apprentices are still working. They're all remote, but they are all still in their apprenticeships with our corporate partners. So that's a great thing. We're really blessed in that regard. Nancy, I don't know if you have anything to tag on to this.
Andy did a great job explaining all of it. He said everything that I wanted to say in much better words than I was going to say it in.
All right, then Nancy, we'll start with you on this one then,
Okay.
because I think everybody's interested in this when we talk about seminar. We typically talk about seminar type style classes, and you teach probably one class that is our least discussion based, seminar based class, and that's accounting, because it's accounting. But that being said, all of our classes students produce a capstone project at the end that they are able to demonstrate, Andy, as you have said, and Cindy, their acquisition of the knowledge and then applying the knowledge by producing something, whatever that something might be. And so, Nancy, what does a typical Friday class look like for you? How do you assess student skills accomplishment? And then what do you do if a student is struggling?
Like Angie said, my class is very different than pretty much all the others at AU because you don't really get to discuss accounting. It is what it is, just like math. You can discuss till you're blue in the face and you're not going to change anything. So there's really no need for that in the class. It's more of a, what is accounting, what does it mean, and how do I apply it? So in an hour and a half on Friday, I don't have time to teach you everything you need to know to be able to get through accounting in a semester. So before you come to class on Friday, I have sent out what you need to do to prepare for the class, whether that's to read a book that talks about some of the different concepts, that's where we start, or to listen to some online lectures that start the process of understanding. And then when you come to class, you come prepared to ask any questions that you may have had from your assignments throughout the week. We dive into anything that I've assigned to help the understanding of that, and then we go a little deeper and apply it just a little bit more. So my class is probably a little more lecture based, but there's still a lot of active participation. My lecture is very much determined as to what is the level of students' understanding when they come in, and how much time do I need to spend, what do I need to explain. So it's still, it's not just this is what I'm teaching today, regardless of where everybody is. It's still very much directed on what is going on with the students in the class that day. Let's see, I lost your other questions. Oh, so my capstone project, how do I assess what you've learned? My capstone project is basically taking everything that I have taught throughout the semester and applying it, putting it all together and applying it. So throughout the semester, we learn in small chunks how to create financial statements, what is a debit and a credit, the different things that we do each week, or if you were in a business and the different things that happen, paying the rent, all of this, how does that flow through the financial statements and what does it mean? And so we work on that a little bit at a time, we learn more and more and more. And then at the end of the semester, you have a capstone project where you apply all of those skills, and I give you a company and I ask you to put all their entries in the books for the month of December, create their year-end financial statements, and then project, because forecasting and projecting is also a part of what we work on. So project out, what does a 5-year plan maybe look like for this company? And you're able to take everything that you've learned throughout the semester and put it all into this project. And it's very easy for me to assess where your level of understanding is based upon how well you're able to do the project. If someone is struggling, I will say my class is not an easy class. We go through a lot of material in a very short period of time. And I've had students who have difficulty, and that's fine. I'm happy to meet with students outside of class. I've met with students in the library or at AU or different places one-on-one and figure out, what is it you're struggling with? What do you not understand? And I'm happy to sit down and work with you one-on-one to help get you that level of understanding. As I said, I've been teaching pretty much my whole life. And so maybe I present something in a way that you just don't get it the first time. That's okay, because I can present it in another way or a third way or a fourth way, and I'll just keep working at it until finally the light comes on and you say, oh, I get it now. That's what that means. And I love doing that. I love watching those light bulbs come on.
And I would just say that you have been incredible with the students as you do teach. Like you said, it's a very difficult course for many, many people, and you've been so wonderful about walking them through, and at the end they really understand what they're doing. Cindy.
Yeah, I think that's the beautiful part of AU is that we do, as facilitators and guides and instructors, whatever role we're playing at the moment, we have the opportunity to customize that experience for the given student where they are, whether they're struggling with the concept, if they have a unique learning style, or they're just not getting it. The delivery style that I'm choosing to use in the classroom isn't clicking. That's not a problem. We adapt as we go along. And in a traditional setting, you just don't always have that opportunity. But I know in my classroom, I'm always excited when a student comes to me and tells me that they're struggling or they're just not understanding or what have you. Great, let's make it work. And every time I think my students would verify that to be the case. Every time a student needs to be worked with, it will happen to give them the best experience possible. But as far as a capstone, depending on what class you are enrolled in and which class I'm teaching, the ultimate goal is to attribute some sort of a personal application component based on that topic. So if it's the government class, the constitutional studies class, that particular capstone, they're going to zero in on one of the first 10 amendments, the Bill of Rights, and then they're going to apply that in some sort of a setting that they get to choose. Humanities, same thing. There's a topic that they expand. Probably the class I teach most frequently is the critical thinking skills class. That particular class starts out with just those initial chunks of knowledge, just like Nancy when she's approaching accounting, and we build up to a presentation that's very personal, very applicable, and is really intended to drive a student to take an idea and explode it and look at it from as many different viewpoints as possible. That skill set is used in the constitutional studies and humanities courses as well, but it's amplified in the critical thinking skills class, which is predicated upon current events. And as you can imagine, once you become familiar with the process that we introduce and you apply that process, it can be used absolutely anywhere, in any setting, in any profession. And that's the whole goal of the course. And the capstone's driven to get a student to that point.
Excellent. And I will just say that if you get to come visit a live, actual in-person class that Cindy teaches at any given moment, you might see handkerchiefs being thrown across the room. There are flags on the field for bias. She deals a lot with bias. It's amazing to see what goes on in there. We cannot wait for the classes to come back into the live in-person atmosphere. But Andy, go ahead and talk to us about what it is looking like. And it's amazing because for you had several in-person classes, and then you were immediately sent online, and some of the things that you were doing. And I was thrilled to sit in on when you had your students presenting for a couple weeks their podcast ideas and how you structured that. So
we really didn't miss a beat when we went virtual because we are already through the sort of nuts and bolts production elements of what do you need to do in order to create a podcast, what is a microphone, that kind of thing. And now we are into crafting that storytelling and what is good production. What do I want to really do? What's the expectations to satisfy my audience's desires and needs and that kind of thing. And it's really exciting. I've done production for years and years and years. And I just had a conversation yesterday with one of the AU students as we were talking about what we needed to do to get their capstone project rolling. We're doing one-on-one on the telephone, a kind of a pre-production meeting to talk about their final capstone. And it occurred to me when I hung up the phone that it wasn't an instructor student conversation. It was a conversation among colleagues. I was an executive producer. Here was the producer. They were pitching me their idea. They were justifying their choices. They had thought it through. Everything was in place just like you would expect in a professional environment. And I just, as a credit to that student, that's the level and caliber of people that I anticipate for all of the 12 people that are in this class. They have really made a great journey to become effective producers. And so the capstone project is really simple. And that is, you have to produce a podcast episode that could be uploaded and sent out to the world. And it has to be, what we would consider quote unquote broadcast quality. And I think out of hearing all of their ideas and getting all of the peer reviews that we did, that everyone is going to come out with something that they're going to be very, very proud of, and that it's going to be a showcase in their portfolio going forward.
Absolutely. And I'm so excited about those capstone projects. And I will tell you, for the guests that we have in here currently, and for those who might see this on a recording, is that oftentimes we will also have capstone projects that can cross classes. And we actually encourage that from our students at Apprentice University, because again, that is real world. When you can apply skills and knowledge and information and utilize it across different disciplines, correct? And so for Andy, for several of the podcast capstones that you're going to be having, they're taking what their requirements are for Brian Hudson's modernism class or books to keep sane by class, and doing a podcast, producing a podcast based on what they need to do for the capstone for his classes. And that's great. We don't expect everyone to do a completely different capstone if they actually can apply the skills across the board, and it becomes much more valuable for everyone involved that way, because it is completely real life, real circumstances, really the market. So I appreciate that so much from you all. And we're going to open it up in just a moment to anybody who's in here who has any questions. I'm going to give just 3 more questions, one to each one of you, because I think that each one of you can answer a specific question more so than the rest of you. And so Nancy, I'm going to start with you. Is because you do teach a very skills-oriented class, is you touched on it a little bit, but kind of go further into it, is that we at Apprentice University, for our foundational certificate, all of our graduates must be accomplished in that basic business accounting. And could you speak why anyone, no matter what career field you're going to go into, why those skills matter?
No matter what field you go into, your company relies on money. A company cannot run without money. And the way that you need to understand how the decisions that you make affect the bottom line of your company. And, if you are making decisions and the company is thriving, that's great. And you need to be able to understand why that's happening. What is the decision you're making? What impact is it having financially? Why is it having that financial impact? And for the other side as well, what if you're having a negative impact? What's causing that? And if you in order to really fully do that, you need to understand how everything fits together, how the numbers flow through, how this decision flows all the way through and impacts your business as a whole. And maybe you're not even an owner of a business. You may just be an employee, but you are in charge of something, some part of that business. And how are your decisions impacting the business? Or, you know, just understanding as a whole how it all works. Like I said, accounting is the language of business. There is terminology in accounting that is used in the business world. And if you're not familiar with that, if you don't understand that, you're going to be lost. So just learning what that language is, learning what the terminology means so that you can understand how things work. You know, and being able to understand financial statements, it all pulls together. And maybe you start out as you're just an employee, you're just a low man on the totem pole, but you work your way up in the company. Or maybe you decide to start your own business sometime down the road. That knowledge, that understanding is a launching point to help you in the future.
Absolutely. Thank you. Cindy, this question is going to be for you because Apprentice University, it is part of our foundation, and everything we do is about critical thinking, creative problem solving, innovation, right? Nothing makes it more critically apparent than at the time we are sitting in right now having this meeting that we need good thinkers, creative thinkers, innovators, because the problems that come at us are unprecedented and will continue to be unprecedented. And so we say that is one of the biggest skills that our students at Apprentice University possess, are those critical thinking, creative problem solving skills. We teach all of that. So would you mind talking to me about how you've said something about it, but approaching that and how you see the students being able to take all of that out into the world, regardless of where they're going to end up in a career field?
Well, that's a great question. And actually, I can literally frame that kind of predicated upon what Andy talked about earlier. You know, who has signed up for the How to Survive COVID-19 course at Unknown University? I took that 15 years ago, did not. But then also to build up on Nancy's comment about the applicability of something like accounting, no matter where you land. So the one thing that is certain in the business climate and the business community, regardless of your discipline, is uncertainty. Count on it. No matter what level of analysis you jump into when you're looking at threats and vulnerabilities and opportunities, the largest one of any category is never going to be on your radar. And I think where we are right now is a great example. So I work in healthcare, and predominantly when we're delivering healthcare in our centers, we're doing it one-on-one with our patients and our physicians or advanced practice nurses, right? You go in, you've all been to the doctor, you go to the waiting room, you go see your provider, you have your exam, you get your script or whatever has to happen, and you go on your merry way. Introduce this little thing called COVID-19, all right? This nuance of a virus that's created a pandemic. And suddenly everything we know about clinical practice is being turned upside down. And instead of us reaching out to our patients and say, come on in, we're going to take a look at you and help you out through this health crisis that you're encountering, we're stopping people at the door and saying, do not come in. You can go around the corner and go in the sick clinic door if you meet this criteria. Otherwise, we're sending you back to your car and telling you to go home, and we'll create a telehealth appointment. Trust me, no one in healthcare saw that coming 60, 90 days ago. Telehealth was a service, but it wasn't the predominant delivery vehicle. Now that's changed for everybody. I say that and I frame that because when it comes to critical thinking, those skills to be essential to the survival of the impact of COVID-19, whether you're in healthcare, you're in a traditional business relationship, services, IT, it really doesn't matter what you're doing. There's a post-COVID-19 world out there, and the survivors are going to be those who can apply critical thinking skills to opportunities, problem solving, rebranding, regenerating, renewing, recreating themselves in that post-COVID-19 world. And I can tell you, I know that's a fact because that's just what I was charged with yesterday. Is I'm in an environment where we are living this. We live by everything that comes down from the CDC on an hourly basis, but someone has to start looking 60, 90 days out. You can't just live in the here and now. And that's where I'm at. And I'm going to be using those critical thinking skills that are so essential, and my accounting knowledge and communication skills and all those things we try to drive home at AU. So as it relates to critical thinking, what will set you apart as an AU student from other students is critical thinking is laced into everything that we do in some fashion at AU, and certain courses like the one that I teach are meant to highlight that. I don't see that as a predominant thread in most traditional universities and environments. And that's not to bash, it's not to be critical, it's just a realistic assumption and really an observation among those traditional methods. So critical thinking matters no matter where you land.
Excellent. And then Andy, your class might be considered one of those classes that you will think, well, it's podcasting, so that falls under somewhat of our digital storytelling framework here at Apprentice University, possibly under marketing a bit, but there might be people who would think, well, I'm not a podcaster. And why would the skills of podcasting, or why would right now in my life I want to be involved in producing a podcast? Because how does that, what frame of reference at all would it matter in the least to me out in any possible career field? And then I will say something about, you mentioned you have 12 students. If everyone would understand the difference in the career paths that those 12 students are all taking right now, but they all are in podcasting because they want it to be. So I'll let you go ahead and field that one.
So podcasting is today what creating a sign on the exterior of your business used to be years and years ago. Any business or any professional who understands how to be able to communicate digitally in a recorded format like this in a coherent way has the ability to talk to potential customers or provide needed critical information in a format that is an on-demand format for the consumer or the customer or the vendor or whatever. And so you can have podcasts now that are strictly in-house, what we call in-house organs for the organization to communicate internally. There can be training applications of a podcast concept. Then, of course, you've got the mass public appeal of other public focused podcasts that are, some of them are for profit, some of them are just passion projects, that kind of thing, or educational kind of things. And so really, there's no end to what podcasting can do for a current professional. It's just another means to communicate expertise, provide insights and information in a new and widely accessible and available format. So it behooves us all, much like accounting. You know, accounting is how we keep score, whether you're in business or in nonprofit, doesn't matter. Podcasting is becoming how we get messages out and how we create a library of material and content that helps differentiate ourselves from other professionals or other organizations or other companies that exist on the planet today.
That summed it up. That was a wonderful, that is wonderful. What I'd like to do is open it up to any questions anybody else in the room might have that's with us today. If anybody has anything, Paige, I don't know, I haven't seen anything come through. You might have something that I don't. We had the question of projects you've done in your class, but I think you guys all touched on that a bit. We'll wait just a second, see if anyone else has anything. And then what I would do is just, to sum up is ask any of you if you have any final thoughts, anything else you'd like to say. Thank you all for being with us. Again, like I mentioned, and you've heard, they're all professionals. Everyone that we had in last week is a professional. They give of their time to be with us and to be mentoring our students. As you've heard, like Andy said, he was just on the phone with one of his students yesterday, and Nancy has pulled somebody aside, and as has Cindy. And they just truly pour in to our students at Apprentice University. Whether you are an apprentice in our post-high school program, or you are still in high school and taking some of our classes as well, which we absolutely love for high school students to do. But I am absolutely honored and privileged to work with each and every single one of these people, and it is so fun to be able to go sit in classes and just see what's going on in there. It's just amazing to experience. So if any of you have any other final thoughts, we'll open it up to you. Andy?
Yeah, I would say there's a business adage that is so true even today in this digital world we live in, and that is, it's not what you know, but it really is who you know. And I think Apprentice University is structured so well to not only create great working relationships with all the people that people meet through the apprentice program, but also with the community inside of the organization. And what I see in the class that I have, as Angie said, everybody comes at it with a different career goal, but they're uniform or unified in the fact that they're all truly Apprentice University colleagues. And they're going to be this cohort that I think will actually probably stick together as they progress through their career. You just don't see that at sort of the mass production universities, especially now as they go more and more online. You know, you really don't have that cohort of people that as you progress becomes your network of people that you can go to for project work, that you can go to for advice, for career leads and that kind of thing. And I think Apprentice University is so uniquely situated to foster that throughout the lifespan of somebody's career.
Thank you, Andy. That is exactly what we think. And we do have graduates who are still so heavily involved with Apprentice University and other apprentices because they are out doing something in their expertise field, and they can lend a hand to students who are either coming behind them in that field or other students who know they have that expertise. And like you said, their network is so vastly broad at such young ages. Cindy or Nancy, and you don't have to say anything, but if you'd like to, certainly.
Well, I was just going to add to that, you know, there's so much pressure in certain circles to continue down the so-called normal path, the traditional path. You finish high school, you go to college, you live in a dorm, what have you. But what I have learned is that, you know, some of the most brilliant and creative and amazing success stories are by people and include people who were bold enough to not tread on the same path. They were willing to take a different avenue, to try something different, and to go out there and put themselves out there. It's not to say that excellent can't happen in the norm, but why tread the same path everybody is when there's an amazing opportunity to do something very different that is already giving proven results? And so if you happen to be one of those individuals who's not so certain, as an individual who's been part of AU for a number of years, I have yet to be disappointed with the product that I see coming out of AU. And if anything, continually impressed, as are those who are mentors and facilitators in businesses for the apprenticeships.
The one thing that I've noticed that I love so much about Apprentice University is the ability the ability of AU to tailor the education to each individual student. It doesn't matter what you're interested in. Your education, your apprenticeships are tailored to you. And I take as an example, I referenced my oldest son earlier. My son Andrew graduated from AU in January. He is now in a full-time job, making a tremendous salary. His job, just like Angie mentioned earlier, the apprentices are not affected. His job has moved to home. He's working from home now, but his job is not affected. He is still working full-time. loves his job. He got it because of one of his apprenticeships. He is not working at a company that he apprenticed at. He is working at a company that was affiliated with one of his apprenticeships. And this company came along and said, wow, we want you, and gave him an offer. But like Andy was talking about, we have these students you're put into a cohort, and you're put into a group of other students who are in the same place you are, and you are working together, you're encouraging one another, you're pushing each other through. And so one of the other young men in my son's cohort was also named Andrew. There are two Andrews. He doesn't have, my son is very interested in IT and technical and computers and all of that. This other young man is very interested in, his dream job would be to be in theater. But he graduated in January as well. They graduated together, and they both are now working. And while my son is in the business world, the other Andrew is in the nonprofit world in a position that he's just thrilled about, that gives him that opportunity to use his creative side, because that's where his focus is. And I mean, how many places can you go to have your education and your learning so completely tailored to your interest? There's a Mrs. Gorski meets with the apprentices. I don't know how often, you'd have to say so, Angie, how often she meets with them, but she's constantly asking them, how is this apprenticeship going? What are you learning? What have you learned about yourself? Because often the apprentices will start out and they think that they want to follow this path, and they get a couple steps down this path and realize, oh, that's not what I thought that was at all, and I really don't like this at all. But this other avenue seems kind of interesting now, so maybe I'd like to pursue that. And so AU is able to tailor that. And okay, I thought I was going this direction, but now I'd kind of like to go this direction. Okay, let's make that happen. And they will do that. And it's an amazing thing that AU is able to do.
Thank you. And thank you all again. We will go ahead and have this recording available to any, and if anybody is in here and you'd like to talk more with any of these people, we sure can put you in contact with them. We just cannot be more blessed to have them as part of our instructors here at Apprentice University. So with that, we are going to go ahead and say goodbye to all of you for today. Thank you so much. We'll see you either online soon or hopefully even in person, better yet, soon. So have a wonderful day, everyone.